Run him. Stay on him. That him, boy. Angela, that's a sack on the ball. Good job.
All right, folks. Welcome back to Brothers Blitz. Here we are, out in the world. We're doing things. Fox is changing the legacy of the Dolphins and Dan Marino in Tecmo Super Bowl. Things couldn't be better, basically. Well, if you were Dan Marino in these versions of Tecmo Super Bowl.
I was going to say, for the Dolphins, it couldn't be better. They won 2 out of the last 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. It's still crazy to think. It's like crazy to think like what we would think of Dan Marino if he won 2 Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that we don't already have Dan Marino's usually pretty high up on people's lists, but like if he won a couple Super Bowls, you know, with the stats he kind of put up during when he was playing, you know.
And more significantly, the second one they went 19-0.
Wow,
so.
yeah, that really would have been. If the Dolphins had 2 perfect seasons in their history as well, that would be crazy.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
Yeah, that would be really crazy. But so this week we are in the middle of the season now, basically. You know,
dead in the middle of it, week 9.
Yeah, So you know, because of the
depending on how you want to look at it.
Now that it's 17 games instead of 16, there's not an exact middle, but
about as close as we're gonna get.
Yeah. So we are gonna do some of our own awards here that we've decided to hand out.
Our own basically made up mid-season awards.
Yes, made up. We've each come up with 4. We don't know what each other's are here, so we like to keep the mystery going, the suspense there. And so we're gonna be doing some of those awards. We've had an interesting season so far, I must say.
Yeah, it's week 9 coming up, and we're still kind of like, who the hell is separating themselves? And the answer, I think, is no one.
Yeah.
Nobody's separating themselves.
I think Eagles fans would give you an argument for it just because they've only lost the 1 game.
Yeah, maybe, but like, you struggled against the Commanders twice, and you should have lost to the Patriots. I'm still not sold on them.
I know it's hard because it's like I can totally get the argument. Like, I understand. Like, yes, you're 6-1. You know, if you're looking at this from a perspective of like this is just growing pains with 2 new coordinators, we're only going to get better, and we're 6-1. Then I can I think that's kind of, if you're a positive Eagles fan, that's kind of what I would say, which I would totally understand. It's just still a little hard from watching the games to feel like they're actually a 6-1.
That's where I sit. Like, I've watched a pretty good amount of Eagles games so far, and watching them a lot, I'm still going.
Yeah, or is it 7-1 now?
They're 7-1 now. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But no, I've watched enough of them where I'm still going. I something is still off. They keep winning. I know that, but man, it feels like one of those. It feels like one of those Packers teams in like between like 2014 to 18, where they somehow kept winning games and you didn't understand why. And then they kept flaming out in the playoffs. Yeah. That's kind of what this Eagles team feels like to me. They're this like weird team that keeps pulling out games they shouldn't be winning, and come playoff time, they're probably going to lose.
Yeah, that's what would be interesting, and that's kind of a little bit where I am too, where I feel like I'm not worried because it's not like I'm not an Eagles fan, so I'm not worried. But right. I was gonna say worried. I'm worried that I was gonna be like, I'm worried about the Eagles. I'm like, am I worried? I don't think I feel that emotion for them, but yeah, that's kind of what I've been kind of feeling a little bit. I'm like, it feels like you're still good. Obviously, you're still one of the best teams in the NFC. Like, don't.
Sure.
But it still feels like, are you actually as good as what this looks like? Is this something where you go into the playoffs, you get a loss, and it seems like a disappointment, and then like Bill Barnwell does some like breakdown of stats somewhere, and you're like, oh, we should have seen this coming. Oh, we can see where the flaws are now, what was actually going wrong, and all of those things got exploited in the playoffs or something. You know, who knows? You know, like, because it's possible, like, you know, is it just like, oh man, once one team figured out how they could shut down A.J. Brown, nothing happened anymore. you
Yeah,
know.
right. Good luck
uh,
with that, by the way.
yeah, which is hard. That's not an easy. That is not. That guy's a
We
crazy.
did learn though that the tush push is not invincible because Jalen Hurts fumbled.
That's true.
So
That's true.
and lost the ball. So there you go.
Yeah.
Also, I love saying tush push because it pisses off Eagles fans and it makes me so happy.
Tush push. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, it's brotherly shove. Nah, you're really just pushing.
Jalen needs his little tushy pushed. He needs a little
Yeah,
tushy push.
exactly. It makes them so mad, and it's so great.
Yeah. You know, that's before they put him in his car seat. You know, give him a little tush push.
Yeah, right. Just give him a tush push.
Yeah, you'll be okay.
You gotta make
buddy.
sure he's got extra baby wipes under there before he gets into the end zone.
Yeah. Plus, it's like the thing is, and I can't remember who it was now, but like that kind of play was actually being done before by a college team. So
it was. I saw that, and I can't remember who it was either.
So
it's definitely not new. It's just
so it's like calling it a brotherly shove. Like sounds funny, but it's like, but that actually implies that the Eagles actually started it, and they did not.
Right. And they didn't. No.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, no,
not it. It's like that dumb thing when we had that one day where both the Lions and the 49ers did like a flea flicker play, and they looked almost the same, and people are like, wow, look at this plagiarism by the 49ers. You're like, nobody comes up with plays the day of that are complicated like that and implements them the day of. Because they saw what somebody did in the afternoon game or the morning game.
And not only that, the NFL has always been a copycat league, so...
And that place existed forever. Like, it's... Like, like it's so like I know it looks similar because it was the same movement. It was like both to the right side, both to tight. You know, it's like it all looked. It's like yes, I understand that, but it's like this is a false correlation. It's like because you saw it just happen and then somebody else just did it soon after, your brain goes, obviously they saw that and decided we can do that too. Which does happen, but never not on the same day.
Not on the same day, 3 hours apart, you know, because when that play was when the Lions were executing that play, the 49ers are at home, literally warming up on the field. Do you think Kyle Shanahan's in the locker room going, look at that, let me implement that play?
He probably didn't even watch. He probably didn't even know that play happened, honestly. Like, I'm focused on my game. Anyway, that stuff's funny. So let's get into some awards here.
Anything else? Well, before we do that, is there anything about Week 8 that we want to talk about, like, overall?
Well, I don't know yet because I think maybe we can get into some of that after. It may be more interesting to see what kind, because the awards may kind of bleed into that a little bit. So I just thought if that happens, I don't want us to, get ahead of ourselves a little bit.
Gotcha. That works.
So do you want to kick us off with one?
I do. Yeah, I will. Mine is kind of twofold. So I have the Raiders winning 2 awards.
Wow. I have them on one too.
They they win the award for firing their coach way too damn late. So they win that one.
My reward's related to that, but I'll let you do your your other one with it. Yeah.
My second one might be related to that. But Raiders fans win best mid-season decision with Mark Davis firing not only Josh Daniels but the GM and the offensive coordinator as well.
It's true.
But Raiders fans win the mid-season best decision award by their owner.
Yeah,
that's what they win.
And they should also win, and I didn't think about this, they should also win paying the most head coaches award. Because once they hire a new head coach, they're going to be paying 3 head coaches.
I saw something today. One of the dudes I follow on YouTube did a video of like how badly the Raiders messed up.
Yeah.
And they're paying over the next 4 years, they're going to pay Gruden and McDaniels between $40 and $80 million total.
Crazy. And I mean, it's so this kind of relates to your first award. It was the shouldn't need hindsight award. Which is for the Raiders, because it's sort of like, it's like, I don't know. It's like you never really got a good feeling with McDaniels. Now, like, maybe I understand the thinking of like, okay, well, maybe he just messed up in Denver,
Right.
Maybe this is just like, now he's had a chance to go back and reassess. but he
Right,
never
right.
really showed anything that really felt like he changed, especially when he reneged on the Colts.
Yeah,
Right.
that was the biggest thing that it came out with that
Yeah.
I kind of noticed. Like,
And,
wait a minute, he
and
didn't really learn anything.
if it had been a short-term contract for McDaniels, then I would blame them less. If it was like a 3-year deal or something,
Mhm. Like a
even a
prove it, let's
4-year, because it was
prove
a
it deal.
6-year deal.
6
Yeah.
years.
So, it's just like, but yeah, if you give him like a 3-year deal, because then you'd only have the next year, if you had
Right,
to fire,
right. And then
it's,
even firing him mid-season this year wouldn't be that big of a deal because you're still going, well, we only have to pay him for another year and a half.
right.
It's
And
fine.
that's not abnormal if you're firing a coach and stuff.
Right, right.
And it's hard. The Gruden thing, the hindsight is, well, you should probably just never really give somebody a 10-year contract, especially since
Mhm.
Gruden was coming back into being a coach after quite a while's away. This wasn't like, like heyday Belichick and Brady, and you're just like, yep, let me just get 10. I mean, not that he even had that big of a deal, for that long,
Mhm.
but it's like, then, but at least you would have been like, oh, this makes sense. You've won a couple Super Bowls, you guys are rolling, like whatever,
Right, right.
even if things don't end well, it's like a 10 years, who knows? Like if you did that at the right time, he could have done a 10-year deal with Brady still there.
Right,
Or
right.
even if you, I don't know if you do that. I mean, it's hard to think of giving anybody a 10-year deal. I was even
I
trying
was
to
gonna
think.
say, I don't think you give any coach a 10-year
Yeah,
contract or
because I was
whatever
I was
extension.
trying to think about that with like would I give Andy Reid, because that's probably the best right now, right? Because you have Andy Reid and
Mhm.
Mahomes, and it's like
Right.
I would, I think, but I would not feel great.
Great,
I'd be a
right,
little
right.
like, I think that's a good idea. That's probably gonna be fine, but still, 10 years
Right,
is
right.
just a long
'Cause
time.
well, yeah, because you just never know what's gonna happen too. Like, what if, you know, fuck all forbid here, like, what if Mahomes did suffer some sort of career-ending injury and Andy Reid also falls by the wayside because the game just passes him by and you're in year 4
Yeah.
of 10 years? Like, what do you do
Yeah, things
then?
happen, right? You don't
Right.
know, because obviously the
And
Gruden
that's
thing.
and that's why you should never go more than, like, for me personally, I would never sign a coach despite their accomplishments more than 4 to 5 years because you never know what's
Yeah.
gonna
Well, I
happen.
think if they're super established and that you can see where things are going, a 6-year deal can make sense, because that's a look, you're secure, and what you've been doing has been great so far.
That's fair. Yeah, that's
And
fair.
it's like we can see where everything's going, and we feel really good about it. But
Mhm.
more than 6 years is where it starts getting to a little like, because that's
Right,
just a lot. And you just don't know what can happen in that amount of
right.
time.
And more than 6 years against a dude who reneged on one deal and was awful in his
Yeah.
first head coaching. 6 years is
Yeah,
ridiculous to
but
get
yeah,
him.
and I'm sure that's just what he needed to try and attract him to the place. But like, and the thing is like the stuff that kind of is terrible with the Josh McDaniel stuff that has carried over from his time at Denver is he's so bad interpersonally with personnel.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
saw this small clip with Brandon Marshall earlier today, and it was from when the Raiders first hired him, and he was like, "No, I don't care about saying bad things about him. This dude belongs nowhere near a head coaching position."
Yeah.
It was something of that nature, and I was like, "This dude played with him for 1 year 13 years ago, and he's still like super hot about it.
Yeah.
He's mad.
And it's
Like,
like the
what
way,
does
well,
that tell
because like,
you?"
so I mean, I got pretty sour about it with both the Josh McDaniel, I mean not Josh McDaniels because that's the coach, the Derek Carr and Darren Waller treatment,
Mhm.
because it's like, I mean, like, not that Derek Carr is like the best QB in the world or things, but he was so committed to the city and he was so
He
committed to the
was.
team. He loved
Yep,
doing it, and
he
like
did.
that was the thing he talked about. And it's like, if you want to move on from a quarterback, like that just happens, that's business. But it's like
Mhm.
the way you treated him was like he was a toxic character. And it's like, and this is probably the most positive guy you have on the team
Right, and
here.
your literal A plus wide receiver is there because
Yeah.
this dude is your
Yeah.
quarterback.
Yeah, and at least he knew how to
What
get
the
him the
hell?
ball, like at least he knew how to do that. And I don't want to be harsh on the Jimmy G side either, because Derek Carr also did not look great with Josh McDaniels.
No. Yeah, I
And
don't know if the Jimmy G stuff is necessarily all Jimmy. He's still making some very Jimmy G
sure,
throws.
but it's like, but it's being heightened. It's
Right.
so some of that is the coaching as well. Of it's like you are highlighting the things he does worse. Are like
Right.
that's the things you're having him do, and it's not making sense. You're not doing any of the stuff. Like the fact that even like that Hunter Renfrow gets like no targets ever somehow.
10 catches for 92 yards through 7 games.
You got rid of Darren Waller, obviously, who was a great tight end option. And then Devontae Adams, you can't get him the ball somehow. Like I don't understand.
I don't understand.
And some of that I will put on Jimmy, because it's like sometimes it's like I don't know how you can't at least just get it in his area.
Yeah, like I watched some of that game, and he was crazy overthrowing wide open dudes. Devontae a couple times.
Yeah. And it's, and a lot of times it feels like it's because it's not the throws that Jimmy's good at. And that's part of the coaching too. It's like you're not doing the stuff, and it's almost like that's why he and Devontae Adams aren't necessarily the best complement because he's such an outside receiver. And it's like there's whole stats of Jimmy Garoppolo throwing to the sideline are basically non-existent because he would barely do it, and that's not great at it,
And even I was gonna say, even when he did make those attempts, they weren't great.
No, it's middle of the field, quick throws, like because he has a quick release. Yeah, but
like 6 to 9 yards down the field,
and
that's
even further, if it's middle of the field, he does better too.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the outside the numbers stuff is like, but so some of that's coaching and some of that is Jimmy. But it's like, but also again, it's like, but you kind of know this. We have the stats on. You had him come in, and if you're the team, and that's the part that always got me. And I know a lot of people mention it when they made the change. Is just like. You got rid of the guy who loved being there, stated it, and said he does not want to leave. He loves being a Raider, and he loves being, on the team.
Dude literally cried at the podium because of how much he cares about this team.
And then you do the most linear QB upgrade you could do.
There you go. Quote unquote.
Right? You just went if some, now even still now, because it's not like Derek Carr's playing great either. So, it's like
he looked good last week.
Yeah, that's true. And that could be adjustments, but also I don't think Staley still isn't a great coach either. But or not, it's not Staley. Sorry, not Staley. Dennis Allen. Sorry. For the Saints. But anyway, it's like if you put those two together, especially before the season, like if you just went to people, who do you want? Do you want Derek Carr or do you want Jimmy Garoppolo? It would probably be like an even split if people picking either one, right? It'd be like a 50-50. Like if you asked 100 people, it feels like it'd be about 50-50.
It would be,
of people who watch football.
For me, if you watched enough football with competent coaching, I would take Derek Carr.
I would have too, honestly. I would have too. But even still, it's like there's been enough people. It feels like it would have been like or maybe if it leaned anyway, I think people would have leaned Derek Carr. So you got rid of the guy who wanted to be there, who loved being there, and then you went either to somebody who's considered on the same exact level or maybe slightly below. Like, what does that say to everybody there? And like we treated him so poorly when we did it.
Right.
It's like
we also went for a dude that was honestly, like, let's be real, probably just kind of looking for his next paycheck.
I mean, it's just like if you're the guys on the team, that's got to be so it's like, so this guy can love being here. He can be one of the best teammates. And again, if you move on because you think you're going to do some upgrade or things like that can happen. But you're going to treat him like shit.
Right.
And then you're going to get somebody who's basically the same or worse,
possibly, or not a little worse. Yeah, right.
But doesn't have the same connections to the team, doesn't have the same love for the team. Like, it just doesn't, it's like if I'm in that locker room of people, I'm like, why am I going to give myself to this team? if that's how
Right.
you're gonna treat
Yeah.
us, you know, like I'm not gonna give all of myself to you all. So
Right.
yeah,
We just saw our franchise quarterback give his everything, and they still went bye-bye.
yeah.
Now, it would be a little bit different if they were like, yeah, we can get Lamar.
Yeah,
So,
like if they'd made a
like,
real
we love you,
push,
but we can get
if they
Lamar.
made a
That
real
would be a
push for
little bit
Lamar,
different.
right? That tells everybody like,
Right.
oh, we get it. Okay, you know, I still don't know why you
Right.
treated him like crap because you didn't need to. Like that's the thing. That's the Josh McDaniels thing. It's like
Yeah.
you don't. It's like you don't see these players as people, as adults even.
Yeah.
It's like
And that was something that was literally so I watched a couple of clips when Rich Bisaccia took over after Gruden got fired or resigned.
yeah,
And it was for us like the biggest thing is we're not just numbers. Like, yeah, we're numbers on the field when it's practice or the game, but like when outside of everything else, like we're people to Rich Bisaccia, and this is why we love this dude so much
Yeah.
and why we wanted to stay. That was another thing too. I'm like, why did you fire a coach that your locker room universally loved? That
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. You know, and it's
Oh
like,
my
and
God.
people were kind of going through some of the past stuff. Now, again, the Gruden thing's tough. One, you should never, the hindsight should have been a 10-year contract, but it's, you
Right.
know, and it wasn't the best years, but they at least seemed like a stable-ish team, you know,
Right.
like they were playing
I
fine.
think he was still building a pretty solid team overall.
Yeah,
Even if some aspects of the game had passed him by,
Yeah.
I think he was still building a really solid
Yeah,
roster. Because
yeah.
I don't think
I mean, it was a
I don't think
playoff team
Bisaccia
before
would have
Josh
been able to
McDaniels
come
got
in.
there. So,
Well, I don't think Bisaccia would have been able to come in and do what he did. I think he's a great coach, but I don't think he would have been able to do what he did if Gruden hadn't at least built a solid
Yeah.
roster
yeah.
before him. So I at least give Gruden credit for that.
Yeah, and still having like a felt like at least a team direction, right? They had a
Right,
direction,
right.
they had at least a culture of some kind. McDaniels comes in and it's just like a tear down of culture. It's like it's not even like
Right,
oh,
right.
it's a tear down to build up. It's like it's just a tear down. And then
Right.
he's like, why aren't you all playing well? You know,
Right.
and then he's like
It was
mad
like
at
a
them.
tear down. Not only it was like he was trying to. It feels like he wanted to tear down not only the Raiders culture but try to implement the Patriots culture, and we've already seen that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. Like he's tried. Well, you already tried it in Denver, didn't work. Matt Patricia has tried it. Other former Patriots coaches have tried it, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Yeah, and I don't. It's yeah, it is always funny when you get like as part of the hindsight for the award. You know, with
There
that,
you go.
it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting is because the further you get from the Brady era, it's like
Right.
the better. It's like Brady looks better and better and better, which is crazy, being that he's already started at the top of the mountain there. But
I would say it's. Well, fuck for me, like Brady and Belichick look better and better and better.
Well, but
these guys.
Well,
Go
there's
ahead.
that, but I think when you're looking at what the Patriots are right now too, it's like it's looking even better for Brady because it's just like, well, Belichick, it's not like they're doing so hot, obviously, and they've had so many different coaching things on their end. So it's just like people keep going, man, was Brady really just like uplifting some of these guys? Now, I think not that I think Belichick was still a great coach, and like maybe he's lost his way now, but like, and that's a whole other debate. It's not like Belichick wasn't a great coach with Brady there also,
Right.
He also helped build these teams and everything like that. So that's silly to be like, oh, maybe Belichick isn't good at all. It's like that you don't win that many Super Bowls but without being a good coach, a really good coach.
Right.
A good coach can win a Super Bowl. An average coach can win a Super Bowl if just things fall right. I think.
McCarthy.
McCarthy was the first person that came to mind. You're just like prime Aaron Rodgers. Your defense was getting a good amount of takeaway. Like all sorts of Clay Matthews.
Everything just happened to fall. But even then, everything had to fall just right in the playoffs because they had to run the table on the road, and they just did.
Yeah, which was impressive, but still, like, it never reached those kinds of heights again. So I think these things can happen. I think, but yeah, so he's like, but you can't win, you just can't win 6 Super Bowls.
Yeah, right. And
Yeah.
go to 9.
Yeah, and go to
overall.
9 without also being really good at what you're doing on your side of the ball.
Yeah.
Your side of the ball and at the time at the personnel. And it seems like the personnel stuff, and maybe that was I'm still wondering if the Belichick stuff now is him also not quite connecting, like, oh, I was able to do these roster things because of Brady, because he was
Mhm.
so good. I could use
Right.
these kinds of receivers and do it, but it's not working when I don't have that
Right.
upper
It's
end
not working when my
quarterback.
quarterback is Mac Jones.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But all
Right.
right.
So
Well,
let's
all right. So my second award here for us is mine is you seemed crazy, but maybe you were right.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm actually gonna go. There's two people I kind of thought about for this, which was Sean Payton and Eric Bieniemy, actually.
Okay.
So Eric
Okay.
Bieniemy, because people thought he was going a little crazy because they talked about how bad he interviewed. People were like, "Is he really that good? Is it just Andy Reid?" And then also there was like the drama in the training camp with like the players talking about his intensity and like what
Mhm.
he was asking and
Mhm.
stuff.
I remember that. Yep.
But with the way the Commanders have looked now, obviously they haven't won games. Some of that's Ron Rivera. Some of that's just they only have so much talent on the team. But
Yeah.
by
But
and
overall, their
large,
offense looked good.
yeah, by and large, the offenses looked very, very, looked pretty good with, not like they have the best things. I mean, Terry McLaurin's a really good receiver, and
Right.
Dawson's
And
really good now,
Dotson's a
but
really good receiver as
yeah,
well.
yeah. But still, it's
Brian
like,
Robinson's also
yeah,
good.
but it I mean the way that Howell's looking and everything on there. I mean, that's
Mhm.
so it's like you seem like maybe this was a bad idea, but actually that seems right. And then but the Sean Payton side of this is interesting because at first, of course, the hiring, you're like, oh, people are like, oh, that's a great idea. It's not like he seemed crazy at first. But then you had
Right,
the
right.
comments that were like, oh, this is the worst coaching we've ever seen, where he was talking about Nathaniel Hackett, right? And it was like,
Mhm.
I mean, that may be true, but it's weird that you said that out loud. Uh,
Right.
to
In a press
cameras.
conference,
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
way.
yeah.
It's not
Not
like you
even
said it
like,
out loud
yeah,
and you were
yeah. And I thought that was
it's not like
crazy, right? And I was like, that
yeah.
seemed
No,
crazy.
that is crazy.
And then, of course, with the way Denver kind of how the early part of their season has played out, especially with that Dolphins loss, it's like, okay, well, maybe Sean Payton is just crazy, and maybe he shouldn't have come back. But
Very possibly.
they've looked more stable recently.
Mhm.
And it is possible that now I'm like, maybe you were not crazy. Maybe you were right. Maybe this was such a horrific a horrific coaching
Mess.
job done by Hackett that you knew it was going to be bad in the beginning. So that's why you said what you said, because it was like, it's going to be bad because
Mhm.
we are going to look bad, because that's how bad the job was done here. And I am not going to
Right,
be,
right.
this is not going to be a one season fix. This isn't, oh, I get to come in,
Yeah.
just reset, just have a decent offense and we'll be in good shape. It's like,
I mean, I felt that way from the beginning, like, even just with Peyton's attitude, it felt like, "Oh, this is not a one-season fix. This
yeah,
is I'm coming in to somewhat right the ship in the first season, but we're still not gonna be great.
yeah, where it's like the
We're
players are
gonna have to
broken
like, this is a year
because
2
yeah,
or 3 that we're gonna expect to be competitive
yeah,
again."
and it's like the players are broken because of
Mhm.
what last season entailed, and so it's not just a thing where you can just come in. So that was one that I mean, obviously they coming off of the win over the Chiefs and everything, and who knows? Sometimes weird things happen. So I'm not gonna say like, oh man, they're like back and ready to go or whatever.
Right,
But
right, right. I mean, you have to their quarterback did have the flu, so
right, right. So that was definitely part of
and
it.
not every player who has the flu is gonna play like Michael
Yeah,
Jordan,
yeah. But I mean,
so
by and large, their offense has had decent consistency. They
Mhm.
haven't been very good late in games, the offense, but
Right,
you're
right.
actually seeing some, and hopefully the defense. I mean, now obviously they really kept the Chiefs to a low score, but yeah, who knows? That could have just been
Yeah, that
the
for me has been my biggest takeaway is like actually the Broncos offense hasn't really looked that awful. It's their defense more than
yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Like, where the hell did that come from? Because their defense last year was the only thing keeping them in
Exactly,
game.
which was very strange. So yeah, so it's just sort of like we'll kind of see
Yeah,
how
yeah.
it plays out. But yeah, so it's like, okay, well, maybe you were not crazy. Maybe you were just right. I don't
Yeah,
can
yeah.
you think of anybody else like this season or any other teams or anything where that might be? I was trying to think of some other
Like, maybe they were crazy. Like, the coach was
where we
crazy.
thought like, oh man, maybe like, wow, this team is crazy, or this coach is crazy, or this player is crazy, but then like as the season's going on, you're like, oh, actually, maybe you weren't crazy. Maybe that was the right thing to do, or maybe that was, I can't.
No, I can't really think of anything because, well, we already touched on the Raiders, but that was, over almost 2 years ago when Josh McDaniels got hired, which I thought was crazy at the time.
Right.
It
Well,
turned out
and
to
they
be
weren't
true,
really
but-
right. They're right to
Right,
fire him, but
right.
it's not like that would have
Well,
been like if Josh.
anybody like us were right and like, that's fucking crazy. What are you doing?
Yeah,
Do
right.
not
Right.
hire
I
that
guess so.
man.
I guess.
We were pretty right, but other than that, no, not really.
Yeah.
Because like I would almost say Brian Daboll, like the Giants betting stuff on him, like that was crazy, but at the same time, it's not. It's
Well, see,
not.
but that's what I mean. It's like it's not just the crazy part. It's like, oh, we thought it was a crazy like this kind of category would be if Josh McDaniels worked out, then they would
Oh,
win
that
this
would be crazy.
because it would be like, oh, we thought this was crazy. Oh, but it looks like you were right. So it's like it's that level because like the Dayball's out there, right? Or if Daniel Jones looked really good, they'd be like, wow, we thought you were crazy to give Daniel Jones this contract, but actually it looks like you were right. It's like I'm trying to think if there's any other. I mean, there could be contract things with that too.
Oh,
but
I
I
see
don't
what
know.
you're saying. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right now, no, because everything, like all the other stuff where we thought like this is crazy, that's all proving out to be wrong. Like, why did you give Daniel Jones that contract? That was stupid.
Yep.
We thought you were
we
crazy.
Were right.
And,
yeah, we were
like,
right.
we were right. Turns out you were crazy.
Yeah. It just turns out right. Turns out crazy was crazy. Yeah.
I really can't think of anything of anything else. Because even with the Jets and Rodgers, like they weren't crazy. It's not their fault. Rodgers tore his Achilles on the third play of the fucking game.
Yeah.
So that wasn't crazy. Like we weren't proved right.
Yeah. Well, on that.
Which
I may
is
have
a
some
perfect.
things to say with that. Oh, go ahead.
Which is a. Well, I was going to say that's a perfect segue into my next award. Sweet. I give the midseason false hope award to the Jets.
Nice.
Now that they've won 3 in a row with Zach Wilson, I've seen some stuff going, maybe we could make some noise with Zach Wilson. No, you can't.
No.
You're not going to beat the Ravens or the Bills or the Chiefs in the playoffs.
You can't make good noise.
No.
You may scream.
But I watched the end of that game of the Jets-Giants game on Sunday, and those Jets fans were going wild after they won the game, and it was like, maybe we could do this. No,
it was so awful. It was an awful game.
The Giants had to have negative passing yards for you to lose.
Exactly. Like
to win, right?
You barely beat a team, and they wouldn't let their quarterback throw a forward pass. Right. And he's actually a quarterback on their team.
Right.
Like I get he was a third stringer and drafted this year, but still they let
his roster as a quarterback.
They lost Daniel Jones and they didn't go, oh, let's sign another veteran to get behind Tyrod Taylor because our third guy can't throw a pass.
Right.
They went, nah, it'll be fine. We'll be okay. And Tyrod Taylor gets hurt and they're like, well, I guess just Saquon's over there. Just toss it to the side.
Dump it off to him.
We're going to let you also hand it off to him like 40 times, obviously, but that's less surprising.
And the crazy part of this, too, is that Graham Gano for the Giants missed 2 field goals, which would have beaten them.
Yeah.
But, like, I saw Jets fans cheering and going, maybe we have something here. No, you don't.
No.
You don't. I don't know what you're thinking, but you don't.
No hope. Don't. Yeah, no.
Don't trick yourself into we're 4-3. We're in a wild card spot. Just don't.
No, man. It's just terrible. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. I'm trying to think of other teams that would be like sort of in contention for that. I think the Jets are definitely the right choice, but I'm just wondering if there's like Hold on, let me.
Maybe the Titans after Will Levis threw double the touchdowns in one game that Ryan Tannehill thrown all season.
Yeah, that's true, which is crazy. And we'll see how that plays. I mean, they are playing the Steelers tonight, so
yeah, that should be fun. Actually, now like I was dreading that game, but now after last Sunday, I was like, well, if Will Levis is actually like kind of the guy,
yeah.
and he keeps hooking up with Hopkins the way he did on Sunday, Steelers are still a really good defensive team. Like this might actually be an all right game.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, that's not a bad one. Yeah, that's not a bad other one.
Better than Bears Chargers on Monday. Good God.
I know. Yeah, Bears in primetime at all is not.
I turned that game off in the first quarter, and because I was flipping back and forth between that and the World Series, and then after the first quarter, I was like, "Yeah, World Series."
Yeah.
I'm not putting that.
What you think next coach fired might be Eberflus, right? Right? I mean,
might be him. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt that. Even if it's not this season, they could let it play out, but
maybe. I think the Bears probably let it play out. I still think Staley is on the hottest of hot seats still for the Chargers.
Yeah, but that still might be an end of season thing too, though. It really depends.
Yeah, that's true, because they're still sort of in contention at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they're still there.
Wild card wise.
Yeah, I mean, they're 3-4. I mean, because you've got your division leaders, but I mean, you've got Buffalo at 5-3, and then you've got a bunch of 4-3 teams. So it's not like they're
right.
They're only a game behind a lot of these other teams. So it just depends. If they go on a losing streak of any kind, I could definitely see Staley getting fired mid-season.
I think if they what did you say they were 3-4 right now?
Yeah, they're 3-4. Yeah.
I think if they somehow lose the next 2 weeks and even all those teams above them split and go 1-1 each, I think Staley's gone. There's too much damn talent on that team to keep doing what they're doing. Like, yeah, look, good for them. They beat the crap out of the Bears. Like, score.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So I actually both talking about the Jets and Chargers leads right into my next award.
Yes.
Both teams, which is the Things Never Change Award.
That's perfect for the Chargers.
Yeah, it's just it didn't matter if they move cities, like nothing. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter with their quarterback, coach, whatever they're changing. It's always the same thing. Like, wow, look at all the talent on this team. This should be really good. That was disappointing. Like that's the process of the Chargers. Is every year you're like, wow, they look. I don't know. They got some really good players, and they do. They do. They just objectively
really do.
have had really good players, and it's just like I don't know. There's like no explanation I can give. I mean, I don't think that they've ever really had the right head coach, even if they've had some decent ones over that time frame. I mean, obviously you had the Phillip Rivers, LaDainian Tomlinson, Antonio Gates, years.
Which is also nuts that those teams never even made the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they couldn't even get there, and they would
couldn't even get there. Like that's crazy.
Constantly having the best record, looking really top.
Best offense, good defense. Yeah. Like, how did you never make it beyond the championship game? Like, my God. Yeah. Well, but that saying still stands. Chargers are gonna charger.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is like now it's just gotten worse because now you're charging and now it's become like an in-game season thing. So it's like you might make the playoffs if you just don't quite charger all the way. But if you charger all the way, you'll make the playoffs, and then don't worry, you'll have a huge lead and blow it. You will
lead by 4 scores against the Jaguars and you'll lose.
Yeah, somehow.
Have fun.
So and I also had Zach Wilson in that. Now I know he's only played one season, but the reason why I had Zach Wilson as a connection with that is the things that really never change are if a quarterback is bad and you can just see that the quarterback is bad, the quarterback is bad. Like it's just there's a certain level, right? There's always degrees on like a quarterback.
Right.
Can they be in a system? How whatever, like all of these things. But I think sometimes you just watch a quarterback and they're bad. And you
Yeah.
can't, if you're starting to pick apart, yeah, but look at these 3 throws that were really good. Okay, but he
Right.
threw 25 and the 22 other ones were terrible.
Right. Right.
That's not even a good batting average. It's like,
Right.
it's like this isn't, but in football it needs to be like 60 to 70% of your throws need to be good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. So it's like that if a quarterback is bad, they're bad. And it's just like there's nothing. The best Zach Wilson has ever shown is mediocre, and that's his top, right?
Right. That's
So
when he's looked his best is mediocre,
right, that's like
which is not good.
Right, that's right. All of his circuits are firing. Everything is working at 100% optimal rate. Mediocre.
Right.
Maybe
right.
we'll get 20 points. Wouldn't that be exciting for us?
And that's funny too because I was on Twitter earlier this week after the 49ers loss, and some people were shitting on Brock Purdy hard, and I didn't defend those interceptions. Like, those were bad. I think he was concussed still. I don't think he should have played, personally. I'd have been perfectly happy rolling with Darnold to give him that extra week because to me, it just reminded me of the Tua situation last year where he cleared the protocols, but like, should he be playing? Probably not. Anyways, so some people were like, man, Purdy's really not that good. And some guy went, well, do you want to go back to the CJ Beathard days and the Nick Mullins days? And I chimed in and went, yeah, like, why don't we go ahead and sprinkle in some Sean Hill and Trent Dilfer while we're at it?
Right, yeah.
You want to, like, these are bad quarterbacks who just don't have it. And they're bad by just watching them. Purdy's not bad.
No.
Not even close.
No, because you can watch the
just
throws.
Has some bad throws.
Yeah, you watch how he moves around. I mean, he did some really good runs too in
and the Bengals. And I also pointed out, like, in the Bengals and Vikings games, he was really good, except for those 3 interceptions total which a couple of them that I think you and I already talked about via text were like, it just looked like his brain was not 100%.
Oh, the Vikings one, yeah,
especially the Vikings one, like, he was not there.
Yeah,
like, he was obviously somewhat feeling concussion symptoms, so like, I don't necessarily blame him on those ones at the same time. But anyways, the overall point is he's not bad. You guys don't, especially younger 49ers fans. Sorry, not sorry. You guys don't know what's bad. We have seen it.
Yeah,
it's bad.
And it's like, and it is, and this is what I remember us talking about in the text when we were texting and stuff. Is the other thing is you got to remember with that stuff is that we forgot about growing. Don't forget about some growing pains, right? So like Zach Wilson, and just because people may be like, oh well, why can't that be Zach Wilson? One, because he's almost always looked bad or mediocre. He's never really looked what I would call good. Like, I've never seen him look good. It's just been, wow, that's not bad, Zach Wilson. Like, that's your, like, if that's your best level, that's not a good level.
Right.
That's not what you want in your starting quarterback. Is that that's your, like, Tyrod Taylor's. That's your, like, backup level, like, except for Tyrod Taylor's consistently, well, that's not bad, Tyrod. Like, that's kind of where he got.
Same thing with, like, Jacoby Brissett, too. Like, oh, that wasn't bad.
I'm just going to consistently be at that level, which is why I'm a backup, but I can come in for a few games, and we might, be able to win 2 out of 3 or something like that and be okay. But Zach Wilson is, oh, your best is, oh, that's not bad. But a lot of the times it's, what the hell is happening? What are you
What the hell are you doing? And he's not a backup; he's your starter.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a different level there. Where Purdy, I feel like what you're usually like is like, yes, great, that's good, that's looking really good, it's really solid. And then every quarterback has those. Wait, what just happened? What did you just do that? And who knows?
I feel like people have been overly critical of him when it comes to that stuff. Like, every quarterback has at least 1 or 2 throws a game where you're going, where the hell were you going with that?
Or just
dude?
a couple game stretch where it's just like, wait, what's happening? What's going on?
Right.
And so, and now I get, the argument that does make sense is, again, you still only have so many games. He doesn't even have a full season under his belt. So I get the caution of but what if this is a pattern? Like, what if this
Right,
is a
right. I
thing?
get that. I do.
And it's
Yeah.
technically
But for
possible,
me,
obviously, but
I took away, like, if you actually watched those games, in particular the Vikings game, he was really good that entire game until his head hit the turf.
yep, yeah,
After his head
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
ricocheted off the turf, that's when he went
yeah,
downhill.
yep. But what's your? Do you have another one, right?
All
You
right,
still have one
yeah,
more?
my last
Yeah.
one. Well, speaking of the Vikings, biggest blow to the season award goes to the
Oh.
Vikings because poor Kirk Cousins.
Mm.
That really does suck.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Vikings were coming back. They were playing well. Cousins was playing out of his mind, and he tears his Achilles. And
Yeah.
that just sucks.
Yeah, that sucks. Because you come off the win off the Niners, which you're feeling great about, and then
Mm-hmm.
and
You beat the Packers in Lambeau.
yeah,
Even though the Packers aren't very good, but still, like, you beat an arch nemesis in their home after beating the 49ers. Like, man, you should be feeling the highest of highs, and you don't,
yeah,
because your quarterback is now out for the season.
yeah,
So that just sucked. Poor
yeah,
Vikings.
and that really, that really sucks in a mid-season, and
Mm-hmm.
the Vikings didn't have the best record, but they were, it's like, okay, especially once you beat the Niners and stuff, you feel like, oh, okay, like, we're getting, and the
Well,
offense and the fact that Kirk Cousins had been looking good the whole year, even without Justin
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson, was
Mm-hmm.
definitely something that I'm sure made people feel pretty good and pretty positive.
Yeah.
There.
Well, and the Vikings got themselves back to 500 with beating the Packers on Sunday. That would have been another nice little high.
Yeah.
You come off back-to-back wins against the Niners
That's
and your
true.
arch nemesis,
That's true.
and you're back to 500, and you're within a game of the wild card, but now your starting quarterback's gone.
Yeah, that's rough. Yeah, that's definitely rough mid-season kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what you do, because it's. I mean, obviously, they went and they got Dobbs as to try and have somebody who can come in and knows how to throw the ball and stuff.
Right. At least try to steer the ship, but
Yeah.
it's still poor Vikings fans. So that was my last
Yeah.
award.
Yeah, and what do they get? The question is, like, what are the Vikings' plans, though? Because because Cousins is not going to be under contract.
Yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, hard to say. I don't really know.
Yeah, I wonder what
Even if they re-sign Cousins, you still know he's not gonna survive another 4 to 5 years. The dude's already in his mid to late 30s.
Yeah.
So I don't know what their plan
coming
was.
off a big injury.
Right.
I just don't know. And that sucks for Cousins too, though, because he probably would have had another pretty decent payday the way he was playing.
Yeah, for sure. Like, even if the Vikings didn't re-sign him, some other team who felt like they were even like a semi-decent quarterback away from making a run would have picked him up in no time.
Yeah, definitely. So it's just sort of like
I mean, maybe even the Titans would have picked him up in the offseason.
Yeah, maybe if Will Levis ends up not looking like he looked.
Right.
If all the just tossing up to DeAndre Hopkins, which is never a bad idea, but it doesn't always work.
Yeah, just throw it to him. Just
get
see
it.
what
Again, that's why the Jimmy G to freaking, it's like to Devontae Adams, like, you can't even just get it in his area. Like, I mean, the guy's so good, just get it around.
Throw it up to Devontae.
He'll
make it.
He's not.
He'll catch it 8 out of 10 times.
Yeah, he's not 10 feet tall though, Jimmy. Like,
right.
Can't do that.
Cheers.
So, but that stuff sucks, and it just sucks for fan base, sucks for the player. It's the same thing with like the Aaron Rodgers thing at the beginning of the year. It's like the Jets fans excited. Let's see how this goes. Whatever. Like, at least, but we got something to really be excited about. And then like 3 plays in, like,
right.
Really stinks.
Yeah, I guess I could have probably combine Vikings/Jets into.
Yeah, but I guess that's like a mid-season award. It makes more sense to go for the Vikings because it's like the Jets.
Right, because at least our expectations for the Jets went way downhill as soon as Rodgers got hurt.
Right.
And at least for me, my expectations for the Vikings were starting to rise, considering how they were playing and coming back. And I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
They could actually maybe make some. No, never mind.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah. Now that's gonna seem rough now. So yeah, that's gonna be rough for that. I mean, that division now. Oh, actually, this actually leads me into my last one anyway.
Sweet.
Which I'm calling the No Letdown Award. That is I'm giving to the Lions because I was worried about them being a letdown from their previous, from the high of the end of the last season. Everybody's high on the Lions. Everybody's like, oh, the Lions. And you go, this feels like it could be one of those, like, oh, actually, never mind. Moment.
They're living up to the hype.
Yeah, but they're actually, 6-2. Obviously their last loss was not great.
No, but that for me was like, that for me was almost kind of, that ended up being good. I think it'll ultimately end up being good for them because they went into a really hostile environment against a Lamar Jackson who was playing out of his goddamn mind.
Yeah.
And got annihilated. So I think that ultimately was good for them of like, hey, we're vulnerable.
Yeah.
We can lose.
Yeah, and so
let's fix some shit.
Yeah, and it just happens. I mean, like most teams have at least one game in the year where they're like, "Whoa."
I've told people before, even though I was barely old enough to remember it, but I remember the 49ers losing to the Eagles 40-8 in 1994 when they won the Super Bowl, and people were like, "What is wrong with the 49ers?" Nothing. Sometimes you just get your ass kicked.
Yeah. It just
happened.
So because I really thought. I mean, I was hoping they would still be good. This wasn't like I want the Lions to be terrible or anything. I
wanted them to be good.
There's no reason to do that to Lions fans. They've had plenty of hardship. So, but it was just like, one of those things of like, we've seen that happen before. It's like a team ends well at the end of the year. They got all this hype going into the next year. They're really building themselves up. Everybody's talking about, people are picking them to like really climb, everything. And we just kind of got worried, like, but is it fake? Was it false hope? Was there going to be a huge letdown? And then they just end up being like a 500 team. And I don't understand. I thought we were going to be one of the top teams in the NFC, but no. But they actually have been. You've just been. One of the
I
top
feel like
teams.
the best comparison to that would be a baseball team with the Padres for a few years, where everybody was like, "Oh, they're total. Look at them.
Yeah,
they finished really well. They got all these free agents. Man, the Padres are going to beat the die, and they're 500."
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So that's definitely so that was I'm trying to think. I don't know if there's any other teams that are on the. I'm sure there are plenty of teams on the letdown award, but I'm trying to think of any other teams that sort of had like that hype or something going in, and it's like that isn't a standard team because obviously you've got like Chiefs or Eagles or
sure
yeah. I mean, I guess Miami you could also maybe throw in there for that because it's like, were they really that good? Is Tua actually going to be able to do what he did before?
I would still put Miami in. I would leave them on the outside looking in still because they still like really technically haven't beaten anybody that is contender worthy, and the contenders they have played, they have looked really bad against. So I don't know.
6-2 though.
I would sort of leave the Dolphins in purgatory almost.
I mean, they're 6-2 now. I think I really don't envision them like going to a Super Bowl or anything because of that, like kind of the stuff you're saying there. But as far as like a letdown, like it seemed possible that it could just be like Mike McDaniels is a huge fraud. Tua's not actually good. Like sort of like basically the Giants are like the other end of that, right? Where it's like now you're
Well, actually, I just thought of somebody else. If you wanted to go on the other side of, we expected you to be this, and Oh shit. Well, never mind. I was gonna go. We expected you to be this, but you're actually not. I was gonna go with the Rams. Everybody expected them to be really bad, but they're not. They're like weirdly competent.
Yeah, though now you got the Stafford.
Like getting their asses kicked by the Cowboys last Sunday.
Yeah, but I mean, but even still, with the amount of young players and things that they've got going on, the fact that they've at least looked competent. I mean, that's a testament to Sean McVay. I think a lot.
Yeah.
That shows a lot of good coaching, And then we forgot, like, well, Matthew Stafford, when healthy, is a really, really good quarterback.
Yeah, he's still a really good quarterback.
But
yeah,
but
really
him getting
is.
injured again, so that stinks. There, but yeah, it's just like that's kind of what I mean though, because it's like the Dolphins. It's like so many things that looked good could have not looked good the next season.
Mhm.
But Mike McDaniels is still looking like an offensive genius guy, great play caller. Tua is basically doing what he was doing when he was actually healthy. From my side, there's mistakes and things. He's not. I don't.
Sure.
There's problems, but
that is. I did want to touch on that actually real quick. With quarterbacks making mistakes, this is one thing that has driven me absolutely bonkers with social media and the fact that bad plays are ready at the touch of a finger. Is that everybody blows these bad plays out of proportion, and they're acting like it's gotten to a point where we're acting like no quarterbacks in the past have ever made bad plays or dumb throws.
Right.
And it drives me up the wall because I've seen comparisons still, like Marino never would have made that throw. I'm sure Marino made plenty of dumb throws. We just don't have the footage for that because we didn't have the technology for it at the time. Same thing with Elway or Manning in his early years. Like, they made stupid throws. You just didn't see it as often because technology just wasn't there. So, like, can we stop with this whole narrative of quarterbacks aren't allowed to make bad plays or bad throws?
Yeah, and it's
like,
and we didn't scrutinize it in the same way, and that's the
right.
thing.
And that too, like, we scrutinize every single play, every single incompletion or interception. Like, dude, I'm telling you, like, we've watched games from the mid 90s and the late 90s. They made some bad throws. Like Manning in his rookie season made some really fucking stupid throws.
Yeah.
But nobody went, "Oh, Manning's a bust," because we knew he wasn't.
Yeah, because you're watching. You have to take this stuff as a whole.
Right.
And it's like, when you're throwing a bunch of passes, sometimes you're going to make a bad throw. Sometimes you're going to make a mistake. Sometimes you're going to read something wrong. Like, actually, one of the Purdy throws, that's a good example. That was like right after they got the turnover. And he threw it like to the linebacker, and it looked like he threw it directly to the linebacker, but Romo kind of broke it down where it's like it was actually the linebacker just made a quick enough of a movement, because he's like, if you can see what Purdy was doing, the linebacker's hips, like, he was turning the other way. So from what it looked like from Purdy's perspective was that the linebacker was going to start moving the opposite way, so he threw the ball because you got to get the timing right. So it's just like
right.
Thinking that this linebacker was going the other direction, but he wasn't, so by the time he threw the ball, the linebacker's already moving back. It's too late, obviously, at that point. So even that, where it looked like, oh, that was just that was a dumb decision. It's like, but actually from what you're processing in half a second or less, is, oh, this guy's actually moving this way. Sweet. So that means I need to throw it now. So that way, by the time the ball's over there, he's already all the way this way, and my guy's exactly where he needs to be, because if I wait any longer, there's going to be other guys around my, it's like, that's just the way football works. So sometimes stuff looks bad. That's maybe not as bad as it just looked, because it looked like he just threw a ball to a linebacker. It was like, hey, yeah, that guy can have it, but that's not actually what was happening, happening. I got really hyped for that. But that's not really what was going on.
You sounded like Ralph Wiggum there for a second.
I'm in danger. But so even stuff like that, kind of, there's, you can look at it and you're going, that's just a processing, and maybe from the looks of it, was actually processing it correctly, but the linebacker tricked him out because guess what? It's football.
Right.
They're all playing the
Right.
game. You know?
Right. We're all right. And
So,
kudos to that linebacker for figuring out and going, oh crap, like
yeah,
I'm
was
about
able
to be tricked.
Yeah.
Let-
So, you know,
and then coming back.
yeah, so it kind of yeah, it's you have to take these things as a whole. That's why you can't judge games based off of a couple of throws. You can't judge seasons based off of a single game, you know, and then you can't judge somebody's career based off of a single season. You know, unless if they only played a season or something. But you know, it's like you can't take up Peyton Manning and go, "Oh, but his rookie season was terrible." Ergo, his rookie season and his last season were terrible. Ergo, Peyton Manning was terrible at playing quarterback.
Right.
Because,
Right.
like, okay,
Ergo, the Colts never should have taken a chance on him.
Yeah. So yeah.
Like, well, no, that's not true.
Yeah. So what about the other, you know, however many seasons, you know?
Right.
And again, you can watch it, you can see it. That is also a part of it, watching and seeing it. And when you just take a play as proof that somebody's bad or good, it's like that's never everybody can have a good or a bad throw, and everybody can have a good or a bad game, and then also everybody can have a good or a bad season, even. You know,
but look at their overall stuff. Like, I mean, I remember I thought about this when I saw this crap on Twitter of during that Sean Hill time. He actually had a couple good games with the Niners. Is he a good quarterback? No. Because if you actually watched him, if you actually watched him, you can see it. He's not good.
Yeah.
Did he have a couple of good games against bad teams? He sure did.
But yeah, you can even see it with the throws. It's like some of the throws that work. You're like, that's not supposed to work. And it's not, and it's not like, oh, because the guy's a freak of nature and he made something that's not supposed to work, like a Patrick Mahomes thing, you know, or something.
Right.
Where it's like, how can he sidearm this many things and get it to work or something like that? It's like, oh, that's because he's a freak of nature. This was like, you're throwing a regular pass. It looks like a floating duck. Most of the time, that's what it looked like with King. And
I thought about this too. Yeah. I thought about this too earlier in the week. Is like these guys that make it to Super Bowls or win Super Bowls get more of the benefit of the doubt, even when they do have bad games, or even bad stretches. Like, well, yeah, but they're not bad overall because they've won a Super Bowl or they've been into a Super Bowl. I saw a thread the other day that was comparing Jalen Hurts to Brock Purdy, and people were. When everybody was saying, oh, Purdy's the system quarterback. When you put him side by side, Purdy has actually outplayed Jalen Hurts in literally every facet of the game. But you don't hear people calling Jalen Hurts a system quarterback. Dude's made it to a Super Bowl, and at the same time, I thought, like, you're saying this because he's made it to a Super Bowl, and you're acting like he doesn't have any weapons when he has two of the best wide receivers in the game?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get what you guys are... What constitutes a system quarterback to you people? I don't understand.
I know, and A.J. Brown is a freak of nature.
He's a freak of nature. And also, like, the Eagles also have Dallas Goedert, who's who's a really good tight end. Yeah. They have DeAndre Swift at running back. Like, I'm just like, I don't know why Brock Purdy's a system QB, but Jalen Hurts is not, even though his stats are worse, way worse this season. What constitutes a system quarterback at this point? And also, what do you fuckers want out of a quarterback at this point?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough because it's like the system quarterback thing's already its own, has so many other frustrating things because it's like you have to have a good system, but you also have to have a good enough quarterback to run a system. So you know, you can't, now a system. Now there's two things that can obviously happen. A system can help make a quarterback better, and maybe they're not as good out of the system, but that also doesn't mean that they weren't still good. Right. So this is kind of hard. Even like a Jimmy. So let's say Jimmy G's probably the easiest.
I was gonna say, let's take Jimmy G for example.
It's like people, you want to use the proof that, oh, this shows that Jimmy G was actually terrible and not a good QB. He was just being propped up by the system. It's like, yeah, but hold on. It's like that. But the system was really good, but he was able to execute the system still. Now, does that mean he was the best quarterback to have? No, but it still takes skill. you still have to make throws. You still have to do all of the stuff that's being asked of you from what is also usually said to be a pretty complicated system, the Kyle Shanahan system, that it usually takes people like quarterbacks a full year to kind of get down, and then their second year is like their better year because now they've had a chance to get everything down. So you're saying that he took a very complicated system that is still a very good system, was able to understand it and execute it, and played. And what I would say is the system allowed Jimmy to play to his full potential. And I think that's what people forget. It's like he still had to have the skill to play. His potential is always up there. Now, maybe only the right system and coach gets him to that full potential spot where maybe somebody who's just like a freak of nature quarterback can kind of get past a lesser coach or a lesser system to show you that full potential a little bit more. But it still doesn't mean that potential, but he was still a high skilled player, and did not, and it's like, and also to use what we can see as Josh McDaniels is not a good head coach as an example that Jimmy G is obviously a bad quarterback is also not fair to Jimmy G to go, they just fired their coach who has 4 more years on his contract because of how bad of a job he was doing. And you're going, well, this proves that Jimmy G is also bad. I'm like, I don't think that proves that.
No.
I mean,
no, and even though they're gonna start Aiden O'Connell above Jimmy, that still doesn't say Jimmy's a bad quarterback at the same time.
To me, it says we've already lost this season.
Right.
Let's see. Maybe we're one of the ones that found the diamond in the rough, 4th round pick. We'll just we're cutting our losses, and now we're going to play some young guys, and we're going to see if there's something else there.
Right. Because you're not going to...
Sucks for Jimmy G because I think it would have been nice to see, like, okay, well, maybe with some at least not terrible coaching, maybe you can show, like, hey, guys, like, I'm not actually this bad. Let me show you.
Right.
So it stinks that he's not getting that opportunity, but it also makes sense for them to go, look, I don't know, the guy had some flashes before. I still don't know why they even played Brian Hoyer in that one game. That was
against the Bears, the week before. I don't know why they did that either.
Thing to me, I mean, that feels like one of the reasons why you would fire Josh McDaniels, because it's almost like he wants to be like, F you guys, like, no, I'm going to show you that I need this veteran presence guy. Like Brian Hoyer, he knows the system. And if he knows that's like
I was going to say, I think that goes back to the system and McDaniels himself being obsessed with bringing Patriots people in.
Yeah, and he's so overconfident that the system is what works, not the players.
Right.
It's like, but the players have to have the potential. They have to have
the ability to actually execute your system.
Yeah.
And Brian Hoyer is a career, almost borderline 3rd string quarterback. What makes you think that he can just come in and run your system flawlessly?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the guy's on Social Security. I mean, he's been in the league so long. Like, that's the other thing. Brian Hoyer is not only he's been a career in the backup, but he's been in the league for ages and there's the only reason
close to 15 years now.
Yeah, the only reason why you have Brian Hoyer in the room is because you think he's a smart, savvy guy that's good to talk to your young quarterbacks, and the way to secure him is to put him as a 3rd stringer in your quarterback room, and we think he's savvy, because sure, he understands your system. You want somebody to come in to explain the system to the guys that know it less. But even that didn't make sense because it's like, well, but obviously Jimmy G was also in that system at one point. Now it's been a while, but he was still in it. But yeah, Josh McDaniels is the perfect example of the coach who's like, he so devalues players and he's so confident that his system can do anything that he can put a Brian Hoyer in and show, and again, he's like an FU guy, like, I'll show you this works. And then of course it fails horribly.
My system is so flawless, I can put anyone in there and it'll work. No, sir, it will not.
Yeah.
If your quarterback's not able to execute it, or your players in general, your system's not going to work.
And he's such a bad coach that he's not good at actually taking blame. You know, he's a finger point
True.
guy. You know, even if he
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah. Yeah.
physically point fingers, like he's one of those. I think he's very clearly one of those personalities who goes,
Yeah.
"This is the
He
problem. This is the problem." And it's
right.
like,
He
okay,
will blame.
we fixed all the things you asked us to do, and there's still a problem. And he goes, "Well, that's actually because of this now." And you're like, "Wait, hold on."
Right.
Every time
He
it's
will
something
blame.
else.
He's one of those people that will blame anyone and anything, everything except himself.
And a lot of the
He'll
Patriots
never.
guys are like that. Like, that's the thing. A lot of the Patriots
Which is
guys.
also crazy because Belichick had that culture of accountability of like, hey, sometimes it's on you, sometimes it's on me.
Yeah.
Like, take that accountability. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Do you think he'll get an offensive job somewhere? It probably will, right? Maybe not. Maybe not this upcoming year. Like, I wonder if he takes like a year off or something. But
Yeah, either he takes a year off or he becomes, if he gets picked up by somewhere, it won't be a coordinator. I think it'll be like a consultant or like specific position coach of some sort, like
I don't think
running
he'd do a
backs
position.
coach.
I don't think he would do a position coach because that feels like such a downgrade.
Yeah, and he may be too
Consulting,
egotistical to do that.
consulting, very possible. Yeah, consulting is very
I think
possible.
consultant is
But
probably what he'll do.
but I just wouldn't doubt if not a very good team gives him an offensive coordinator job.
Maybe the Panthers.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say the Panthers or the Steelers won't because they refuse to fire Matt Canada. But
Yeah,
for
but
some
I
reason-
also don't think they would. I don't see.
no, I don't think
Tomlin.
the Steelers will hire Josh McDaniels.
Yeah,
No,
I don't see Tomlin
I think
doing
they would
that.
only hire the Steelers would only hire Josh McDaniels if both them and the Patriots were still in contention.
Yeah.
Like true
right.
contention.
Yeah.
Then
yeah,
they'd be
yeah.
like, hey, let's pick his brain to try to figure out what the hell the
Yeah.
Patriots are doing.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, because I just don't think I don't see Tomlin making that kind of decision.
I don't think Tomlin would even want that kind of personality on his team.
Yeah, or maybe like
And rightfully so.
or maybe like the Bears next year. You know, maybe they hire a guy and then they also bring in McDaniels. I could see that.
Oh, yeah, I can see the Bears doing that. Or well, shit. With all of their offensive struggles, maybe the Packers bring him in.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, see, this is actually what I was afraid of.
The thing is, well,
LaFleur. I was never that big on LaFleur. I was never that high on him. Like, I didn't think he was terrible.
I'm still not high on him.
No, still not. Well, definitely not now. But like, I mean, like, it's like people always brought up the record. Like, look at his record as a head coach, and it's just like, look, I'm not an Aaron Rodgers fan, but we all know he, is one of the top quarterbacks around, and it's,
right.
And it's like one of those things, and the playoffs is where you could always see it, where you're like, this is where the coaching comes through, and I'm never seeing it with LaFleur. I've never seen when it comes down to it, I've never seen him make the right decision. And I've never seen him have any sort of guts either. Like, he doesn't even have any moxie. He doesn't have any guts. He doesn't have any, like, I've never seen any of that. It's like you've been able to keep things stable, but
not push forward, but not move forward.
Yeah, so you keep things even keel, which works during the season, and Aaron Rodgers is so good, and you had Devontae Adams just catching everything, that you could just sort of like...
And Aaron Jones, when he was healthy, you had him too.
Yeah, so you just, they were, and so as long as you kept even keel, you were going to have a good record and a not great division as well,
Right. Let's not mince words here. For the most part, the Lions were bad. The Bears were bad. You basically had to compete with the Vikings, which still wasn't that hard to do.
No, and there were some of those years, and some pretty big struggles there, here and there too for them. So yeah, it's just sort of like, it's just like,
and that like speaking of that stuff too, because when they did get to the playoffs with LaFleur, when they faced legitimate teams, they would get the crap kicked out of them.
Yeah. Or he would just make some huge coaching errors.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know. Yeah. I was never big. I was never big on him. And then it's like, it's even showcasing now, like, obviously you can have excuses for it all, but it's like, but I just feel like I never saw it And now
Right.
it's like one of those things where it's like, people could say, okay, but look at the resume, right? And they go, but look at all this past really good stuff. And it's like, but even when I was watching that, I wasn't confident.
Still totally sold.
There
Yeah,
was
no.
none of it where I felt like, oh, this is Matt LaFleur, like, doing something.
Right.
It was, wow, Rodgers really made a crazy throw there, didn't he?
Right. I always thought of it, especially when it came to the Packers and the 49ers side of it, this wasn't like the late 90s and early 2000s where, as a 49ers fan, I was deathly afraid of any Packers team that was coached by Mike Holmgren. Terrified of those teams because he always had them well coached. With LaFleur, it was just like, I'm not scared of that team. I'm not scared of them.
Yeah.
I don't care what they do in the regular season. I'm not scared of them. With Holmgren, with Favre, even though Favre was a gunslinger who threw dumbass interceptions, it was still shit. Holmgren has this team well coached.
Yeah.
And they're going to put up a fight no matter what. With LaFleur, it was like, not that scared.
Yeah.
Just not.
It's just, you're just like, I mean, they could win. But you're
they
like,
could.
But it's like, that's kind of where you were. You're just kind of like, I mean, obviously if they won, I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm not ever surprisused whenever they lost. It's just like,
right.
That feels
It was just like, all right, yep, sounds
everything
good.
that I've seen, and that's what we saw. Like, we just always saw it. I don't know. The last thing I don't know if we should really touch. Is so we've seen with the sort of Steve Wilks thing, the 49ers Steve Wilks thing, as a defensive
Not a
coordinator.
fan.
Yeah, it's getting a little. Now, here's the thing, though, and this is fair to point out. It's not like they've still given up a bunch of points, even in the bad times.
True.
Now that has come down. Now the red zone part, they've been looking pretty decent, but they've gotten some turnovers in the red zone. So it's like there are definitely some things like this could have been a lot worse in the past couple of games.
Right.
If some of these players didn't come up with these fumbles, and fumbles are hard to predict, they're hard to always get.
Right.
And so that's a little concerning. I don't know. The thing is like, I was fine. I thought the hire was a good hire when it happened because I thought Steve Wilks did a pretty decent job with a not good Carolina team. So it was like, oh, okay, like he seems to know what he's doing. And it's like now I'm starting to wonder, it's like, but I don't know, like maybe Shanahan, maybe you're just really good at like picking coaches and bringing them up. Because both, I mean, even with the Jets, I still can't say that Saleh's a bad coach.
No, I can't either. I think Saleh's a great coach.
Yeah, I think he's showing like he's still a pretty good, and then obviously D'Amico Ryans is already showing pretty solid stuff. Like Texans should be definitely worse than what they are.
Right
there. So it's just like, now I think Saleh hiring Hackett was terrible, but I think he got pressured to hire Hackett to try and get Rodgers. So
absolutely, 100%.
I'm not gonna put that on. I'm not gonna put that on Saleh because I'm like I
feel like that was Jets brass being like, hey, you have to hire Hackett because we got Rodgers and Rodgers wants him.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And or we want to get Rodgers.
We want to get Rodgers. Yes, you have to have Hackett.
Yeah. So there's that side. And it's like I'm almost like wondering now, it's like should the Niners have just promoted somebody from within? Would that have been better?
I would have been way happier with that. So with the red zone stuff, like I know they've gotten a decent bit of turnovers that have kept them in games and all that, and you can go, oh well, that there you go. There's your defense still showing up. My concern is how often these teams are hitting the red zone.
That's what I mean.
What's driving me nuts.
The red zone stuff looks like what's happening is we just have really good players that have been put out of position, so now they're in the red zone. But once the field shrinks, it doesn't matter. Like the play calls become smaller. And it just and sometimes it's like, well, our players, the defense for the Niners is just better players that can make something happen within that short field. It's like Wilks. It's harder for Wilks to screw it up.
Right, right.
right?
But when you face even semi good teams, like when you do go against the Vikings, who their defense is bad, but their offense is really good, you run into trouble. The Bengals offense, when it's running well, is really tough to stop in the red zone. So you can't just rely on these turnovers. And even then, against the Bengals, he had a red zone turnover, and the Bengals still put up 31 points.
Yeah.
So you can't just like that. That's my biggest concern is like he's just allowing these teams to basically walk into the red zone.
Yeah, and I know we kind of
hoping that the talent bails him out.
It really is like what it feels like. Yeah, what it feels like there's a couple of things. One, it doesn't feel like he's really in touch with the team.
It does not.
Now, I know he coaches from the booth, and some people think that's terrible, and some, I'm not necessarily super worried about that.
I don't care about that as much.
Yeah, but it's like, but he doesn't feel like, like both D'Amico Ryans and Robert Saleh, they were like, and not that he has to be a fiery guy like both of those guys were, but it's just like, but they felt with the team. They felt in sync. And I think
that does make a difference considering, most of these guys on the 49ers defense, their last two coordinators were those guys that were on the field, that were fiery and passionate on the field. And then they got this dude up in the booth who's doing his thing. He doesn't seem as fiery or passionate.
Yeah, because you can still see that from the booth. Like if he was fiery or passionate, I mean, you've seen it with some of the offensive coordinators, like Buffalo.
Ken Dorsey losing his mind,
right? But it's like, but at the same time, it's like, but you see, that's how he's like. And again, not everybody's like that. Not everybody has that personality. So I'm never gonna put it on people. It's like, well, you have to be that fiery. It's like, but you're not seeing. It's like you're not feeling like a real in touch thing. And I do wonder, like, so maybe it would help him to be on the field, be around these guys that are a little bit
and with Wilkes too, it just feels like he has no emotion at all, one way or the other. So, because even if he brought that fiery emotion and he stayed up in the booth, I think that would be fine. But the dude shows, my biggest thing is the dude shows no emotion. It's like he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like, and I think that's the biggest problem.
And the players are doing the thing that they should do. I mean, it's just what you do, where they're going, oh, well, it's our job to execute the plays. We're not executing the way we need to. And it's like, that's what you're supposed to say, and that's the good thing to do. Like, that's what you want to see. But it's like, I don't know, I'm watching it. It doesn't seem like they're calling the right plays, though.
It does not, no.
Like, and it's like, and we talked about it in Texas, like, the other thing is, like, it's even the blitzes seem stale. They do. They seem obvious, and they're never trying to trick anybody out.
No,
and it's not like you have to have a bunch of trick plays.
Want a straight up 5 or 6 man blitz every single time he dials one of those up, and it's if you face even a somewhat competent quarterback, you're going to get picked apart. Which the last few weeks they faced competent quarterbacks
because they know exactly where everybody's coming from. There's no stunts. There's no fakes, like, I mean, obviously sometimes he'll do like, oh, guys are up at the line and then they pull back, but everybody does that. So, but it's like, but the actual rush, and like sometimes it's okay to do a stunt. Sometimes it's okay to have the D lineman come over and Bosa go around, or like do some things here and there just to keep them off guard a little bit.
Right.
Just to make them go, we don't always know what's going to happen with the defense.
Right, and that I think that's been the biggest thing. Like these very talented offensive coordinators have figured out what Steve Wilkes is going to do on defense. And no matter how skilled the 49ers defensive players are, doesn't matter when you have figured out the defensive coordinator's scheme.
I mean, it's why the Cowboys look so bad against the Niners, because it was a similar thing. It's like the defense was the same all the way through. So they're just like, oh, okay, we'll just keep doing the things we're doing because nothing is changing. You're not doing anything to confuse anybody. You're just going, you're just assuming your defense is better than our offense, and you can just play the basic level and somehow you'll beat us. But that's not actually the case, because also when you do the same thing, my offense doesn't need to be as good as your defense. I just got to know where to put the guy. And have the guy throw the ball there, because you constantly have the same hole in the same exact spot every time,
And in the Vikings game, that was so fucking clear.
Yeah, and there's some of those long third and like 15s and 14s, and it's just like it didn't matter.
It didn't matter. I guess I thought the Vikings know exactly where every 49ers defender is going to be. They know where they're going to be no matter what, and that's how they're exploiting
and
them.
Cousins is
Because
solid.
Wilkes is refusing to change.
Yeah, and Collins is Collins and
Cousins is
Cousins is solid. He's not afraid to fling it, and
nope.
he sees the
Nope.
and so it'll be interesting to see after the bye with the Niners what kind of goes on there, because that is one, like, if it doesn't improve, you do wonder, like, are they just gonna fire?
So for me, I'm trying to give Wilkes the benefit
Sure.
of the doubt for now, considering how good they looked the first 5 weeks.
Yep.
Now you've got 2 weeks off. And not only that, their last 3 games were really not that far apart. Because they played 3 games in like 17 days or something like that. It wasn't even that far apart.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and 2 of them away.
Yeah, 2 of them being away. They played Monday night. They played Monday night in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
And even last week in San Francisco. Yeah, that's in San Francisco, but that's Monday night to Sunday afternoon. That's a really short turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
Against 2 very good offenses, so I'm trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. However, if you come off the bye and look as bad as you have the last 3 weeks, now we really got some problems.
Yeah, but
that need to be fixed.
Yeah, and I think some people might say it's like, yeah, but the offense has only scored 17 points the past 3 games.
True.
So you could make the argument about the defense, but at the same time, again, this is pedigree, right? This is we know Kyle Shanahan's a really good offensive coach. Like, you just know
right.
That's like an objective fact. We've seen the team go.
But in 2 of those weeks that we scored 17 points, our quarterback was concussed at some point.
Yeah, and the ball was still moving, right?
Right. And one of those weeks that we only scored 17, our kicker missed 2 field goals.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's more. One, you have the pedigree to go on with Shanahan, right? And again, from watching the games, you can kind of see, like, okay, but we were moving the ball, right?
Right.
The 49ers were moving the ball. And now, of course, you have the Cleveland thing, but Cleveland has a really good defense, and it was rainy, and all of the stuff there.
And
so that's fine.
Yeah, right. That was just a shitty.
That's just things that can happen. But it's like the last 2 weeks, you're like, oh, why only 17? You're like, oh, I could see it, and obviously, yeah, with Purdy's mistakes, and then. Yeah, it's
missing a couple field goals.
I'm less concerned, and I'm much more confident that they go into the bye, right, and go, okay, what are we messing up? What are we doing right? But with Wilkes, we just don't know, because it's like, I know that you looked good with Carolina, even though it wasn't a great team, but you still somehow got that defense to be pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
And then and the thing that was positive is, like, we know that the players really liked him there. So that's why I was like, I thought I when he was hired, I was like, oh, that seems like a pretty good outside hire. Like, he was really loved by the team. Obviously, the Carolina,
no, same. I felt the same. Like, oh, cool, man. Of all the guys we could have gotten to replace, sweet, we got a defensive guy that was well liked in his last interim head coaching position.
Pretty solid, right? So right, so it's like, yeah, I'm still giving him time, because you're like, who knows? It could just be he was doing that because it was working for the first 5 weeks, and now it's like, oh, okay, hopefully you would have hoped. It's like the thing that stinks is, like, D'Amico himself. I mean, Saleh was good too, but D'Amico was so good at the in-game stuff. Like, you could just see it. You could see, like, wow, this isn't working. Wow, look at that. Like, they're eating up this space in the field, and the offense is killing us there. And then it's like, oh, okay, second half, that's done. He's like, it's like they just like, no.
You don't get that part of the field anymore.
Yeah, you don't get that now. Like, that was our bad.
And the things I've noticed with Wilkes, it's like, I mean, maybe this is just some of the stuff I watch, is that what is seemed to work in the first half works even better in the second half for the opposing offense.
Yeah.
It's almost like he dials it back.
Yeah.
Even more. And I'm not sure why that's happening. I want the dude to succeed. I really do, but man, over these last 3 games, it's really hard to root for him at this point.
Yeah, so it's just that was just a thought of like a possible coordinator, like because it's the thing with the 49ers is they're never afraid to move off of things, right?
No, they're not.
Because it's like, look, we think we can win the Super Bowl, right? We think we're, so like if you're not helping us do that, it's definitely
Then
something
you go bye-bye.
that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan feels like something that they would definitely do. If it's like, we're not seeing it, we've given you some time, we've talked to you, we've done whatever, and we're not seeing
Right.
it, I could definitely see them doing that. So that was just as a possible, like, if there was another coordinator fired possibility, that's one I could see.
Yeah, I could see Wilkes getting fired. Yeah, I could at this point. I think if they lose coming out of the bye week, we'll see it.
Yeah, depending on how that looks, right? But
right,
it's like if you lose because like you couldn't score 10 points, but the other team only scored 10 points, then it's like, okay, well,
right, then yeah, sure, right.
But
if it's the last 3 weeks where you're giving up 20 to 30 points a game,
and it just doesn't look right, like it just doesn't. It looks like it could have been more.
Right?
Looks, yeah, the yardage.
Like in the Bengals in particular, could have been more.
So any predictions for the second half of the season? I'm just sort of throwing that out on the spot there.
No. The season's just so chaotic. I mean, I think in the end, obviously, I think the Bills and Dolphins and Chiefs and Ravens will all be there, as they should be. Same thing with the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Lions, and the 49ers. They'll all be there at the end of the season, and the Seahawks even. They'll all be there. I'm not even going to try to pretend or try to predict who's going to win those divisions because I honestly don't have a fucking clue at this point.
Yeah.
Because if Dallas beats Philly on Sunday, Dallas is within a game, and then Philly has their bye week. So if Dallas wins on Philly's bye week after beating Philly, they're technically in first place. So
yeah. I know.
So I don't know.
Yeah, so much can change here. And it's like some of these divisions are just crazy with where they are.
Right. And with the NFC South, like who fucking knows?
Yeah. I mean,
I have one that I feel confident about. The Jaguars will win the AFC South.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I feel good about.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about that. I would say, yeah, that's got to be the most confident. Well, I guess now with Cousins hurt,
okay, now the Lions. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. And still the Chiefs, because the Broncos and Raiders are still bad, and the Chargers, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, like,
all right, Jaguars, Lions, Chiefs. They'll probably win their divisions.
AFC North, you got Baltimore at 6-2, and then every other team's 4-3 in the division.
Right, I mean that division is so weird though. Like the Ravens could fall off. We've seen it before.
Yeah, exactly, and they could. I mean, they've still got plenty of division games. I mean, they're 2-1 in the division right now, but still, you never know. And then you've got, AFC East, right? You got the Dolphins at 6-2. Buffalo 5-3. The Jets are 4-3 somehow. Yeah.
But the Bills could easily overtake the Dolphins though.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. And
the Bills still haven't been able to prove that they can beat like a true contender, because if they lose to the Chiefs in Germany on Sunday and Buffalo wins, again, Buffalo's right back in first because they already beat Miami head to head.
Yeah. The one other award that I just thought of that I think should go out to a couple of teams is the why the hell did you not try and get Lamar award? Falcons.
I was going to say, please tell me Atlanta is your first team.
Falcons. Because it's like, oh, you benched Desmond Ridder. Not that shocked. And now you have Taylor Heineke, who's probably going to look better, but you're also going to look at him and go, definitely not a starter.
You're also going to look at that going, oh, shit, we could have had Lamar.
Yeah, right. It's like the fact that I still that's still one of the most suspicious things in the world to me, that no team tried. Like no team
I'm sorry, that's bullshit to
made a
me.
real effort to get Lamar Jackson, and it's like that's just that just screams some sort of owners in the room being like, we don't want to give this guy that kind of money. We don't want to guarantee him everybody. We're getting together. We are not letting you do this. Okay? We are not, that's what that screams to me. And because it's just the fact that the Falcons being number one on that list. So, I think you make a good argument for the Patriots also.
Yeah.
There, I know the Jets were already pretty connected to the Aaron Rodgers thing.
The Jets I don't blame. Yeah, the Jets I don't blame anywhere near as much.
Not as much because they had a plan. They had a we've got a target. We're working towards that target, even if it's no. But if I was choosing, I would say definitely Lamar because much younger.
Well, shit. You could almost put the Raiders in there. Why didn't they go after Lamar?
No, that's easily another one. Definitely. Those are the ones where it's you've got actual pieces on your team, right? You've got things, or the Giants.
Yeah, the Raiders have Devontae.
The Giants, other one.
Oh man, right? The Giants.
You gave Daniel Jones a contract, and you could have gone try to make a serious, because it's if it doesn't work trying to get Lamar Jackson, okay, then whatever.
Then you give DJ. Yeah, right.
Who's clamoring after Daniel Jones anyway?
Nobody. And the same thing with the Raiders. You go after Lamar, you don't get him. Okay, cool. Who's banging down the 49ers door for Jimmy G? Nobody.
Right. And you have
nobody.
Yeah, and it's there were definitely so many. It's but I think I feel like Atlanta was really number one because that just felt like the place that made the most sense. It felt like somebody who really, felt like Arthur Smith would know how to play with Lamar really well. They've got some really good building block pieces. The number one question is, we don't think Desmond Ridder actually
right. I was gonna say their biggest issue is, what do we do at quarterback? You could have had your quarterback.
Yeah.
Right there. He's right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, even as a 49ers fan, I was like, I feel confident with Brock Purdy, but if you actually made a run for Lamar Jackson, I wouldn't have been mad.
No, I wouldn't have been either.
I wouldn't have been mad, but the money and all of that, it all made sense.
Right.
But it's obviously you don't have a blame for them not, because it's well, no, you felt confident, again, the money and the way that was going to work. But teams like Atlanta, it's you didn't have that excuse. That was just not an excuse that you had.
Yeah.
There was no reason to at least not hear things. There was no reason to not.
With Atlanta too, it was you were mediocre last year with a really bad Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder.
Yeah.
Why are you not going after Lamar? You were almost a division champ with these bad quarterbacks. Yeah. Now you can get Lamar?
The South would not be in question. It would have been obviously Atlanta's winning, right? It's just been easy. This is, they're right there, they're definitely gonna win because
And Lamar went to Louisville. He's from the South. It was a perfect fit.
So
what
many
are you doing?
things, and it's just the fact. This is why it's so suspicious. It's the fact that no team seemed to even try. Right? It's there's no reports anywhere of oh, this team offered, was really going out on a big offer or things like that. It felt so much. And it's I'm not a big conspiracy person. I hate it when people think refs are throwing games to try and make a certain team win. And the NFL doesn't need to do that, right? Because so many people are watching. The games are the games. It's there's no reason for them to try, because it's always, if that's I hate it when people have the argument oh, they want this team to win, they want this team to win, and it's whatever team has just been winning for the past few years. People assume,
right?
I'm if that's the case,
I've always thought about that too, because for me it was if the NFL wanted certain teams to win all the time, Dallas would never really lose. San Francisco would never really lose.
But the Cowboys would be at least in the championship game every year. Because their brand is so huge.
Yeah.
It's they would get so many viewers. It's just so many extra viewers because Dallas is in it, So so that's whatever. But this is one where it's we know the owners. It's not uncommon in business, in any business, for the top people to discuss things And to get, I mean, you see it with cell phone stuff. Internet pricing is like that, where it's like we have the most expensive internet from like the developed nations in the U.S. because price fixing. There's no doubt about it. It's just they've all discussed it. And they've all decided this is what we're charging for internet, everybody, basically, so there's stuff like that happens. So it is not without the realm of possibility that enough of the owners got together to be like, we don't want to set a precedence. We hated the Deshaun Watson thing, which made sense to hate.
Right.
I mean, that I don't blame them for, because like you should hate it, because that was a dumb decision to a bad person, nonetheless. Like all of these things, whatever. But it's like, but Lamar, from everything we've seen, good person, very good quarterback.
Yep.
And if a team wants to give him a fully guaranteed contract, even if it's not a smart idea, I'd be like, yeah, But it's like the fact that there were no reports of anybody even trying, that there wasn't like every team was suddenly like, oh no, we're good. I'm like, people have fought over, Kyle Orton before, like people fought over, it's like, I don't know. It's like the quarterbacks that people have fought over before, for Lamar Jackson, who is objectively really, really, really good.
Who's objectively a top 5 quarterback in the NFL.
And the fact that nobody was like, I mean, let me just see, because all the Ravens would have to do is match, right? That's all they had to do in the scenario. So it's like, for them to not at least like try and push up the dollar amount on the Ravens, right? To not go, okay, but we're not going to let you just get this guy. The Steelers, for fuck's sake, like, I mean, the fact that they didn't go, like, at least, because it's like, what's the worst? If you're the Steelers, who you're like, Kenny Pickett, at best is decent, right? Is like a good look, right? Like, that's probably the ceiling. If we can't, let's just go after Lamar, right? If we don't get him, at the very least, we made the Ravens pay top dollar.
Right.
And worst comes to worst, they don't pay. Yeah, worst comes to worst. What? Wait, what'd you say?
I said, well, at the very least, we didn't get him, but at least we handicapped the Ravens salary cap.
Exactly. And it's like, what's the worst thing that happens? We end up with Lamar Jackson. That's the worst case scenario. That's like the best worst case scenario you could have, That's like when you're playing that's like playing a game of some kind, right? Like when like a millionaire, like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something.
It's almost like you're gambling. Like playing blackjack, like, oh, hey, if I double down on this, what's the worst that can happen to me? Oh, I only win $80 on this hand as opposed to $160. Shit.
Yeah.
Might as well do it.
And
either way, I win.
Actually, I need to update, because really what the worst case scenario was in that situation is not you getting Lamar Jackson. The worst case scenario is that the Ravens match whatever you were going to give him. But you still at least made them have to match whatever that was. So like, because best case scenario
quarterback doesn't go to their biggest division rival.
So best case scenario, you end up with Lamar. Worst case scenario, the team in your division that you have to fight with all the time had to pay more than what they wanted.
Had to pay as much money as they possibly could.
So like, that's actually the worst case scenario. So like, the fact that none of these teams made these attempts is like, just, I don't get
Something's
it.
off.
That's
weird.
I don't. That's too weird for who people have fought over before. This doesn't make sense. Like, because we know he's great. We know he's great. There's no question. Now, some people may want to argue how great. Like, if you would pick Josh Allen or Burrow. I'm not going to say Mahomes because that's easy. Like, everybody's going to pick Mahomes. But, like, amongst these other ones, like, are you going to pick, where people may debate that. Like, but if that's where your argument is, again, that's the argument with, like, the top 5. You're arguing over your position.
Yeah, and that argument too is like, after Mahomes, who would you want? Like, man, do you want Allen? Do you want Burrow? Do you want Lamar? Like, who do you want?
Now,
it's a legit debate.
Yeah. And I'm probably because obviously, you got Mahomes. my next one's probably Burrow, just because I think he's got something weird about him. There's something freaky about him.
He does.
Guy.
I would probably pick Burrow too.
Yeah, he's just a freak of some kind where you're just like, I don't get it. Like, I don't. There's something about you that's just you have a freaky thing going on.
Yeah, like people who just gravitate towards that dude, and you don't necessarily know why.
Yeah, and then, but it's like, but I maybe Lamar after, because I'd pick him over Allen.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
I'd pick him over Allen, obviously over Tua. I'd pick him over Jalen Hurts. I'd pick him over Dak, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to think amongst the other guys. I mean, because really, it's kind of those four, right, that are really in the debate, right? Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, and Burrow are kind of like the four of like any one of these guys you'd be happy to have your franchise.
Right,
and not just happy, you'd be ecstatic. You'd be like, "Oh,
right.
We've really got."
I still think I take Lamar over. I take Lamar over Allen.
Yeah, me too.
I would.
So Anyway, we should probably end because we've now been talking for a while in the Thursday night
for a while.
So.
And also Thursday night football's on. So
all right, folks. Yeah, thanks for listening. That was a lot. There we ended up getting a lot. But it's Midseason awards.
Let us know your opinions too. Like, who would you take after Mahomes and or Burrow?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, somebody's entry for the movies that shitty guys use as excuses to break up with people.
Oh.
Which was a good one. It still didn't quite meet the criteria because I was trying to think of 2000s or later, but it was a really good pick. Pulp Fiction.
That's a good one.
That is good. I was like, okay. I was going for a little bit newer, but there's definitely people within the millennial area that are definitely like, Pulp, the guy sort of guy movie.
Have you not seen Pulp Fiction?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is I had to break up with this girl. She hadn't seen Pulp Fiction, or she didn't like Pulp Fiction. I was like, that's pretty. That's good.
Pulp Fiction's perfect for that
that's
shit.
Pretty good.
Oh man, whoever submitted that,
that's good stuff.
Kudos. That's a great fucking choice.
Good stuff. So anyway, there's that as well. But
all right, I like that.
Thanks everybody for listening in to our mid-season awards and other things that we ended up talking about. There.
Yeah.
Come just keep checking in with us. We're kind of getting almost on a 2-week schedule.
Almost. Well, now that my job situation has changed, I'll be available on a regular basis more.
Yeah. So we'll let Fox get back to Tecmo Super Bowl, and we'll see how many more Super Bowls Dan Marino can win.
Let's find that out.
And you know what? Maybe he'll be on the show then. Because it's like we've really changed his legacy for him. So he should really.
Yeah, I'll email Dan Marino.
Not that he had a bad legacy, but we've really heightened it by giving him a couple of.
Like, bro, you went 19-0 and won 2 out of 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, you just hit top.
I just
3.
cemented him as the greatest quarterback of all time.
Possibly.
So.
I mean, people at least put him in the debate there with the 19-0. Mm-hmm. That'll help with that. So
exactly.
All right.
You're welcome, Dan.
Yeah. So come on the show, Dan. All right, folks. So thanks for listening in. Just keep checking out. See when we have a new episode up. Have another good football.
See you next time.
Yeah. Have a good football week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Woo. Peace.